till I can't no more.
I got the horses in the bag. Horse stock is a tag.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Protocol 36. Today's video will be speculating how Spider-Man Miles Morales could set up Marvel Spider-Man 2, whether in the main story or post-credit scene. Since Insomniac are still working on the sequel, I will most likely use Spider-Man Miles Morales to tease what's next for both Miles Morales and Peter Parker. They could tease what characters we could see, whether it's from the first game or new ones. Before we get started, I would highly encourage you to subscribe if you haven't already, as I'll be covering Spider-Man Miles Morales before and after its release, and click on the notification bell in order to get notified for any of my future videos. Now, we know a lot of details for Spider-Man Miles Morales, such as the fact that the Tinker will at least be one of the major villains in the game. We don't know if she's going to be the main villain, but I'm willing to bet that she's not, and that she will most likely be the Martin Lee of this game, but that is yet to be determined. We know that she'll be going after Roxxon, stealing the new form in the game. In the gameplay demo, we actually see an Oscorp van. Other than the fact that Oscorp is one of the biggest corporations in the Marvel Universe, this could also be Insomniac's way of teasing the fans of what's going to come, as the last time we saw what happened in Oscorp, Insomniac clearly had big plans for the sequel, as they have already planted the seeds, and they could let it grow just a little bit in Miles Morales PS5 for players to get a glimpse on what's next for Peter Parker, such as having Norman show up. We know that he has resigned as mayor within the 3 months after the Devil's Breath incident, thanks to the damage Arlo caused in New York. We still don't know if he'll have any political influences in New York in any shape or form, but we do know that Miles' mother, Rhea Morales, will be going for the role of city council in Spider-Man Miles Morales, so there will most likely be a mention of Norman and how he was as mayor of New York. One way we could see Norman appear if he was the background figure of the main villain of Spider-Man Miles Morales, which will most likely be the Prowler, to take down and steal from Roxxon, still making Prowler the main villain, but having Norman calling the shots, and hire the uncle of Miles Morales to do certain jobs for him. But that could be a reach. So other than that, the only way I can see Norman appear in the game is in the post-credit scene, since the post-credit scene of Marvel Spider-Man teased the Venom symbiote and uses the color green to indicate his future as the Green Goblin. Spider-Man Miles Morales could tease us by letting Norman make the Goblin Serum, possibly working on a super soldier program, or better yet, to make things extremely interesting, have the symbiote break out of Oscorp somehow to eventually make its way to a host, someone like Peter. We know that it's alive in some way, and that the symbiote was most likely developed to slow down Harry's illness for Norman to develop another solution for his son's problem. What if it's certain that Harry's life is slipping and that he's about to go at any time, and that the symbiote breaks out of Oscorp and goes to find a better host, aka Peter Parker, leaving somewhat of a cliffhanger for us to wait so we can play Marvel Spider-Man 2 to see what happens next. It would not only be amazing, but the hype for the next game would be through the roof, assuming that they'll be using Eddie Brock as Venom. Maybe we could even get a glimpse of him, whether it's a cameo in the main game or a post-credit scene to basically tell us that yes, Eddie Brock will become Venom in this universe, not Harry, and that we'll be going up against him in the sequel, which then everyone, including myself, would go wild and be counting the minutes until the sequel is out. However, they could also do the Green Goblin, and they could make Norman become the Green Goblin in the sequel, but at the end of the day, it's Insomniac choice on which direction they want to take when it comes to this franchise. We know that Peter Parker will show up most likely in the beginning or the end of the game, possibly even Mary Jane, as him and her are very much in love. What if we take a step further, with Peter telling Miles that he wants to ask Mary Jane to marry him, but not propose until the next game? I do believe that sooner or later in this franchise, Peter Parker and Mary Jane will get married, possibly even have a family of their own. They kinda teased and hinted towards that in the first game, with Aunt May stating that she thinks both of them would make beautiful babies, and at the end of the Heist DLC, MJ claims that Peter would make a wonderful father one day. So maybe that is the goal one day for Insomniac, to let Peter Parker eventually grow and get married. As I mentioned in my villains who could show up in Spider-Man Miles Morales video, that it would be a perfect opportunity to bring Kraven the Hunter into Miles' game to face Miles first, as he's fairly new into crime fighting, and then he could pop into Marvel Spider-Man 2 to face the hero who was training years for, being Peter Parker. As I mentioned in that video, we don't know if Peter has faced a version of the character yet, as we have no references to go by when it comes to Kraven, but I think it's safe to say that sooner or later Insomniac will introduce the character into this universe for Peter Parker to go up against. Since this is obviously going to be Miles' story and him becoming his very own Spider-Man, other than the post-credit scene, there aren't really any other ways to set up up the inevitable sequel without jeopardizing his story. So it would have to be little Easter eggs here and there for us fans to put the pieces together on what may happen next, and I would prefer it if they still focus on Miles rather than just having a game that just sets up another game for another character, but I guess we have to wait until next month. However, what about you guys? How do you think Spider-Man Miles Morales will set up Marvel Spider-Man 2? Let me know in the comments down below. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and want more, subscribe. To begin, Protocol 36.